Welcome to the Empowerment Hour podcast, your digital classroom where individuals across all ages, backgrounds, and career levels tune in to get their weekly dose of inspiration and motivation. It's where passion and purpose intersect. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah and your very own personal success coach. My goal is to help you discover your purpose and take inspired action so that you create a life where you feel fulfilled and empowered. So if you're ready to start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. It is your host, Nancy Ruffin. And this week, I wanted to continue the dialogue around the death, or rather the brutal murder of Lesandro Guzman Feliz, because it is something that I have been unable to stop thinking about. A part of it, I think, is because I'm a mom, and when I think about the way this kid was brutally murdered, it's just hard it's been hard for me to think of anything else. And this past week, they laid him to rest. I believe it was on Wednesday, and I actually had an opportunity to head on over to the memorial site, to the block where he was murdered, at the bodega. And it was tough. It was tough being there and just feeling the energy of the space and knowing that that was where his life was taken from him, and as we continue to get bombarded with these videos and images on social media of his attack, a lot of people have been criticizing the store owners for what appeared to be their lack of, their inability to protect him, I guess, and their slow to act, actions have been criticized. And I would admit that I was one of the first critics, when you see the snippets of the video and when we're just seeing these, seconds of the action or lack of action that was displayed. It's really easy to make judgments about these store owners and what they should or should not have done to help Junior in that moment. And so I actually had a conversation with my family about this, during the week. And my dad used to own a bodega, and he was able to shed some light, on the perspective of the store owners and what it may have been like for them in those moments. And in any case, that discussion was really eye-opening for me. And so because it forced me to look at things in a different perspective, I wanted to have this conversation and this discussion on the podcast to share it with you all, because I think that if anything, it at least will give you something to think about. And I know that with this particular case, emotions are high because of the brutality of it, because of the way that it has been recorded and the images have been shared across all social media, that once you see the video, and I still have not seen the actual images of him getting butchered because I've been very intentional on not seeing that. I don't want to see that. So I've been able to avoid it, thank God. But for many, the video is out there, right? And for those of you who have watched it, It brings on a heightened sense of anger, grief, sadness, because at the end of the day, we look at this boy and we see a family member, right? And I think that our natural instinct is to say, wow, why did someone help him? And so today's conversation, we're going to be talking about the store owners and what, if any, do businesses that operate within our community, do they have any responsibility for the communities they serve? And so I invited my dad, my mom, my sister, and my brother to join me in this conversation because I wanted to get different points of view. And I also wanted to bring you all in to what real life conversations and discussions are like in my family. These are conversations that we have all the time. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have people in my life who often challenge, some of my ideas, some of my opinions, and force me to look at things in a different way. And so that is what I want to do with the podcast as well. I want to challenge your way of thinking and hopefully shed some new light on this discussion. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to drop me a note, leave me some feedback. I know you all really enjoyed the last time I had my family on. And so, yeah, if you love it, if you hate it, whatever your feelings are, just let me know. Let me know if you agree with the conversation, whose viewpoint you agree with most. And if you don't agree with any of us, let me know that as well. The point is to just really start these conversations, have these conversations with your friends, with your family, and in that way we will really start to just see things in a different way and be more accepting of opinions and views that may differ from our own. So with that being said, hope you enjoy this week's episode of the Empowerment Hour.
So joining me tonight for another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast is my family. With me tonight is my dad, Daniel. Say hi, hello. Daddy. I have my mom, Margie. Say hi. I have my sister, and you all probably are more familiar with her because she's been on the podcast before, Diana.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
And my brother-in-law, BKGO. Johanny Omelo. What's up, boo? So we are here because earlier this week we were actually having some family time, as we like to call it, where we kind of all get together and just kind of talk about things that are happening, in the world and in the community. And so one of the big things that has happened within the last couple of weeks has been the death or the murder of Lesandro Guzman Feliz. And there's been a lot of back and forth with who's responsible. Well, we know who's responsible, but with who could have intervened or have helped him so that potentially he wouldn't have died the way that he did. And one of the things that we've been seeing a lot is the bodega owners and the lack of, effort that they exhibited in helping him. And I think that it's easy to pass judgment on these men based on what we're seeing in the media, because we're seeing little snippets and clips. And this has been a case that has really shaken up the community just by the fact of the brutality of it, the fact that it was caught on camera and we really get to see what his last seconds were like. And for many of us, we look at Junior and we see our son, we see our brother, we see a cousin, a nephew, we see, a young man that could have been, any relative to us. And it's really impacted, the community in a really large way. So this week, I wanted to bring my family on to talk about what responsibility do business owners have, to the communities they serve, and what actions should have the bodega owners taken, if any. Now, I'm going to throw out my initial opinion and what that was, and then I'm going to let my family share theirs, and we're going to have a dialogue based on just perception, based on experience, because my dad used to be a bodega owner himself, and then we're just going to let it go from there. So for me, when I initially saw the tape, and when I really started paying attention to this murder, I took it really hard. And so, yeah, my first reaction was like, why didn't they save this kid's life? Why didn't they close the door? Why didn't they call 911? You know, and I think in the beginning, I felt very strongly that they were culpable in this kid's death. And then, my father always has to kind of challenge my beliefs. So I'm gonna throw it to you, Dad.
First of all, you're only getting snippets here and there of the video. We don't know what chronological order those snippets, that are being put out there, how they actually, line up. And so, mainstream media, they're gonna push their narrative, okay? So you have to go in there with, eyes open. Now, wait. Now, I was a bodega owner in the 70s and 80s in Williamsburg and in Bed-Stuy. Now, these are rough neighborhoods. Okay? So, this person here, the store owner there, in that case, he has no obligation to risk his life with a store full of machete-wielding thugs. It's easy for anybody outside looking in saying, oh, I would have done this, I would have done that. No. It's a split-second decision. Your life is at risk. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you would have intervened, the next day his store would have been burned down, or he might have been killed, or his family themselves. Okay, he didn't do it.
I agree with that.
And so now, he's been maligned.
But he did do something. He tried to put him behind the counter, and they took him from there because we saw that. Mm-hmm.
But I think initially that's not what we saw. Initially, what we saw,
wrong, right?
Yeah, but you don't know,
right? But
order.
This is why media is very dangerous in the way they report on the news, because we don't know the full story, and I think until we see the video in its entirety, in chronological order, from beginning to end, like we're never gonna know really what transpired.
That's true.
But to your point, and the fact that you said he had no responsibility, no obligation to intervene, I don't know if I agree with that statement.
I think it's a moral decision versus an actual obligation to do that. Look, I think any person in that situation is different, right? You're sitting there, it's like your father says, we all grew up in tough neighborhoods, right? And first thing you're taught in tough neighborhood, you see something happen, you just keep moving. You see somebody get shot, you get somebody stabbed, you don't get involved. And even in that situation where that person got to come back to every day, that's a hard decision at that point.
But let me say this, though.
Morally, in hindsight, from our perspective, it's like, damn, we have kids, and what will you do? I don't think anybody can know what they did to do until they're in that situation. It's a hard.
I know what I would have done. The way my character is, I would have intervened somewhere, somehow. I would have done that. But I don't expect everybody to do what I do.
That's true.
Okay, back in the day,
So would I? If I had a gun, I would have started shooting. I don't care.
I think I would have to suffer the consequences. Either the gang would have come after me the next day, or I would have to close the shop and move. But at that point, I can't see the loss of life.
You know what the interesting thing to me is? Not only is it media, but also social media. People react, right? We all react to certain things in a sense because of anger and frustration, and you see things. You and I had that conversation because you sent me the snippet of the video. You're like, oh my God, he's beating him up. And then when I saw it, it was like he was pushing people away. And I was like, well, actually, he was trying to defend the kid in a sense.
Right.
And it's kind of hard because we're all parents. So what we want to do is protect that kid and protect the mother. And listen, I don't know. You got 5 or 6 kids coming in slashing, doing this. Unless you have a gun. We don't even know if the man had a gun. Maybe if I had
He had a gun. First of all,
we don't know that.
All right, but I would 90%.
Yes,
will believe that in that area that we already know, is infiltrated by this gang.
Right.
These bodega owners, they have guns.
Yeah, but the other thing too, like your father grew up in understanding that, and he's a tough man. We don't know if this guy's a tough man. This guy could be a church person. Right?
Let's take it.
But they did call the police 3 times. They have that on record.
My thing is, at what point though do you not close the door to your establishment?
But what if they're inside already?
Well, Nancy, you have to understand too. This guy's behind the counter.
Right. By the time he came around,
which usually, and I don't know the setup of this specific bodega, but I know in most of the bodegas that I've been in, you know, sometimes the back of the counter is a little elevated. In a area like that, I would imagine maybe even screened off. I've seen bodegas where they have like the plexiglass and they're screened off from other people. So at this point, he has his kind of protection behind the counter. Now you're asking him to come out from around the counter with these guys wielding their machetes and then go close the door.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a point between when they get into the store, they drag the kid out.
So you say that he should have locked the door then?
I'm just saying, if they want to argue that they were scared and that they were afraid, you don't know if these gang members are strapped. You don't know if all they have are those knives. I'm just saying.
No, if they drag
machetes. What I'm saying, what I'm saying is this. At some point, they all exit the store.
Exactly. They out of the store. The guy's happy. He's like, they got who they wanted. They're not coming here to bother me.
Look, I don't know. At that point, I would think,
why would you close the door after the horse is gone?
I shut the door. You call the cops. And then he did say that he called the cops.
And it's on record, though.
But all I'm saying is that, all right, so they don't. Then the poor kid does come back in, though.
But then that's the part of the video where they show them trying to put him over the counter.
Like, after he gets stabbed up, then he comes back in. I don't know. It's just...
If the door's locked at that point, he's dead outside. So what's the difference?
And most bodega owners
this is true. You're
but
right.
The other thing too, other establishment owners at that point, they're like, I don't want a dead body in my place. They're gonna keep you out as much as you can. Like we've seen.
The last thing I would think about as a store owner is locking the door after the action is already had gone down. Nobody can anticipate these guys are gonna come back.
That's true.
Okay, that you can't. That's,
I don't see.
Nobody's gonna close the door in that situation.
He was stabbed already, so.
He was outside the store. She's saying close the door at that time.
No,
why would I close the door? The situation's outside now. If he had closed the door, the kid would be dead outside instead of coming back into the store. They would have finished him off outside.
So I guess my question, really, what I want to know is, we have these businesses, right, that are in our communities that serve our communities and are taking our money, right? It's the local bodega, so everyone is going there every single day. I mean, I know when we grew up in Brooklyn, the bodega was like right next door to our building. We had a relationship with Fidel. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if we would have ever gotten or found ourselves in any kind of trouble, in any kind of harm, my first instinct, if I can't get upstairs to my building, you know what I'm saying, is to run to what I believe is the next safe space, right? You go to your local bodega because they know you there. And if you don't have that, then, I mean, do they not have a responsibility to help somebody that's in need, especially a young kid who comes in there, scared?
Nancy, I mean, do they have a responsibility to put their life on the line? They're not police officers. They're not law enforcement. They're not equipped to deal with certain situations. And you can't have the expectation that someone's going to put their life on the line for anyone else. Some people just aren't cut from that cloth.
Especially in that situation, you have, I don't know how many there were. It was like 6, I guess.
I don't know. They arrested 8.
Okay, so, let's say it
was
there
6 in the store. There were 6 in the store.
Wielding machetes. And how you gonna get in between that? You'll put your life on the line, and you be the next dead one.
The other thing is, look, and I know I'm probably gonna get killed on social media for this one. These guys don't know. They may know that kid for that long time, but they don't know what drama he's gotten on the street.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they don't know if the kid's innocent or not. Which, in my case, I think we know that he is, which is a terrible thing.
Remember the guy in the wheelchair in West Side Story? That comes to mind, huh?
Well, no. Even more personally, what I think about when I think about young boys like that, I think about our cousin, Macho,
right?
Who was, God bless him, and he rest in peace, but he was bad. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so, even though people in our neighborhood knew him,
right,
they knew that he was bad. He was a troublemaker. He was a bully.
You either loved him or hated him.
Right.
There was no in between.
So this kid apparently was a good kid, but
who's to know that?
Who's to know, really?
Who's to know that he wasn't, one of the bad apples?
Okay,
because he lives there.
But the thing is, even if he is bad, though, I mean, is that enough of a reason to let him get butchered?
It's not enough of a reason, but are you going to put okay, so let me ask you this then. Are you going to put your life on the line? You're a mother of 2 kids. You have a family of your own. You're going to put your life on the line for again, we don't know. We know now that he was a good kid, but maybe the bodega owners don't know that. So for a potential thug, you're going to put your life on the line for a potential thug. And not go home to your kids or your family. I mean, you can't. Dad made a good point. Like, the responsibility for a local business owner is to sponsor a team or,
the block party.
The block party or charity or, give away free turkeys, during Thanksgiving. That's how they get back.
And I also think society has changed. When we grew up, in terms of the neighborhoods and family, no matter all that stuff, people were different then. They were willing to do those things. Now they don't know. Look, there's 15-year-old, 10-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids that are carrying guns and shooting people in the street. So people are more cautious to help someone now because of the ramifications of that's going to happen. And the sad part is that we see that. Listen, we all I feel terrible for the way that kid was brutally murdered, because that's what it was. And those guys deserve to rot in hell. I hope they get butchered the same way he did. But it's such a hard thing to say as a business owner, to have to be a police. You can't.
But it's easy for the people outside in the media to judge these bodega owners.
And that's what we had at the time.
You have to put yourself in that exact spot at the exact time, and then
see what
your personality is also.
But I think, and to your point, because you do say that I jump on what the media says, I think that for me, and this is just how I am, and I know that I'm very just reactionary.
You are.
You know what I mean? And I go off of just what I feel in that moment. So I'm seeing something and I don't know all the facts, but based on what I'm seeing, that is where my emotions just automatically
get the best of me,
kick in.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's the most people that have seen these videos and the reaction that you got by the way that they're taking it out on the store,
and then the way the narrative is going,
exactly.
And how they're portraying it.
Now that things are coming out, where maybe he did try to help this kid. Maybe there's not a
he did appear on the news, and he said that he did try. He tried calling 911,
and you could see him helping him. You could see him helping him, pushing him over the counter.
But see, that doesn't get covered in the media. Okay, they already had the narrative from day one, and that's what they're going to carry till the end of time.
I don't understand why they aren't, going after this young girl that was.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I hear that she's being protected.
Instigator of the.
Like, I think that they have her, I don't know, again, because all you see and hear is off of social media.
There
isn't any real reporting done anymore.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so all you see are people's video tapes. You know what I'm saying? And then, so you might have the local Spanish channel that took the initiative to go interview the bodega owner.
Right.
Right? Local, regular, media is not trying to piece this story together.
Story. Right.
They're just feeding into the story of
the hysteria.
This young boy. He was a good boy, in the NYPD Explorer, right. And so it's feeding into what has already been out there, but it's not telling the whole story.
Right.
But also too, I think social media has driven this narrative further than the actual media. Because if you look at social media, everybody's outrage and anger and things like that, and which is it's all right. But I also think too, it was also part of it is misdirected to these store owners. And look, as a family member, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, yo, I want that store closed and I want that done too, because they could have saved his life. But again, I don't know what people are going to do in that situation. How do you get in that situation, especially like your father saying, they're coming in, they're stabbing already, swinging that knife. And
I think that's a problem. Society wants to put the responsibility on these store owners where, the responsibility were the murderers, the gang members.
Yes, those
and
are
that's
the
where,
and
the girl, and that's where the focus should be. So
let me go ahead, finish this sentence, because then I want to say something about the girl that I read a snippet of an article that was posted in the New York Post the other day.
Right. Well, just to my point, is just that the focus should be on
The criminals.
The criminals,
Okay.
right? You now you're taking you're criminalizing an innocent man, an innocent store owner, and the criminals are the ones that did it. Go after these gangs, get these gangs off the street. That's what needs to be done.
And that's what the conversations.
That's
should
where
be
the conversation
right now.
should be. We shouldn't be talking really. And we are, because this is what's happening right now, and we've spoken about it. We got different input from Dad, and it sparked the idea to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, it should be about the people who committed the crime, the girl who perpetrated this whole lie. And that's what we need to be that's who we need to be looking at. That's who we need to be talking about.
She also needs to be in jail with all the other 8 months that they got.
Well, so I read an article and I didn't read the entire article, just for full disclosure. It was, again, a snippet that came across social media. It was in the New York Post, but it was, I guess, the father of the girl, right? And he was being interviewed for this article, and he was expressing how, torn up about it he was. But then he comes out and he says that her mother's not raising her right. So
he's passing it over.
So now you're not taking no blame, no responsibility, because you, as the father, what responsibility or accountability do you have to make sure that you're raising a young girl that, one, is not engaging in those activities that started this whole thing? And then you want to blame her mother. Again, we don't even know what that family situation is like.
You shouldn't comment, because you don't know. Is he a stay-at-home dad, or once a week dad?
No, but what I'm saying is it's her father.
It's her father. Does he live with her?
I don't know.
How often does he see her? How can he influence her? You have to answer all those questions.
Right, but the thing is,
start blaming him for
blaming
the wife.
I'm not. No one's blaming the wife.
You're
blaming him for blaming the wife.
Well, because
first of all, whether he is in the home,
right,
whether he is on the moon or in Super Freaking 2, he has a responsibility to his kids just as much as the woman does.
Right. The fact that he said that.
Take a seat with that one.
He said that her mother's not raising her right.
Oh yeah.
It's only the mother's responsibility to raise her. Well, I mean, at what point are you raising your daughter then? And how are you not? How are you not responsible?
Right. Because if the mother's not raising her right, then why is she with the mother then?
Right. What are you doing then as the father?
What are you doing as the father? Yeah, no.
And so I think the whole, when you look at this story, from top to bottom, beginning to end,
it's a mess.
You have.
And the crazy part, it all started off of a social media video that sparked all of this crazy.
Which social media is the bane of this generation's existence.
I said it from the get when they started with that. I said this is going to be really bad, and it has.
And it's changed everything.
It's
and it's the sad part now.
It's not just going to get better. It's getting worse. It's going to get worse. Even worse it's going to get.
So I want to shift the conversation a little bit, because I want to talk to Daddy about his own experiences as a bodega owner and in these areas of Bed-Stuy. Well, you said in Bed-Stuy and where else?
And in Williamsburg.
And Williamsburg. And if in the 70s and 80s, Williamsburg is not the gentrified Williamsburg of today, right, that is trendy and is safe and everyone and everyone wants to live there now. Back then, you couldn't pay people to live in this neighborhood.
Abandoned buildings.
Okay? There were abandoned buildings, burned down buildings.
Drug mills all over.
Every corner, there was drugs. I mean, we shared our park with the crackheads. Yes. It was bad. Mm-hmm. And so, Dad, as a bodega owner, I'm sure that you may have found yourself in these types of scenarios, especially because, our family members were gang members.
Some of them.
Well, some, right? Not all, but some. And so, I guess from your perspective, can you talk a little bit about maybe a time where you may have found yourself in a similar situation?
There was one time in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy. So the bread guy's delivering the bread to the store. He goes to the truck to get more bread. All of a sudden, he's being robbed by two individuals.
But I thought they were robbing him for bread?
For money.
But how much money could he have possibly had?
Whatever it is.
Right.
Was
right.
There was cash money.
Robbed.
Back then, there was cash money. It was, So the guy's getting, and before I say that, I was always armed in these bad neighborhoods. Sometimes legally, sometimes illegally. Okay, you didn't exist in those neighborhoods without being armed. But this guy, these people,
And especially you, Daddy, with that white, bright skin of yours.
So I don't know if these guys in that particular store were armed or not, but I was always armed.
Right.
Better to see,
Be
as
safe
they
than
say,
sorry.
no.
Well, get home
There
for
you
kids.
go, as versus there you lay. That was my philosophy.
Right.
Okay, so they're holding up the guy. I come out to the store with a shotgun and I shoot up in the air, so the guys run. Here's where my troubles begin now. I'm trying to do the right thing, like you say. The guy in the store, they should have done the right thing. Cops come. First they tell me, "Oh, you're lucky that there's no apartments upstairs. It's a one-story, building, and we own the building." He says, "But now you have a second problem. I could cite you for firing a weapon in city limits." So there you go. You do
Right.
the right thing.
So, but what happened? Did they or didn't they?
They didn't. I mean, the guy
Right.
didn't find. He finally
You're fine.
he gave me, because I mean I had a permit at that time.
Right.
But
Okay.
even with having a permit and everything being in order, you can't discharge a firearm.
Right.
in
You
the
still
city
you still
limits.
broke the law
Okay.
technically.
Technically.
And it's not that he shot at anybody.
Right.
No,
He shot in the air just trying to scare these guys away.
Save the poor bread man from getting robbed. So again, we go back to the guys in the store. If they might have a gun, they think about this thing too. It's probably an illegal gun. If they
Right.
was to use that gun and God forbid kill one of those guys with
Then he's
machetes,
gonna go to jail.
he'd be in jail.
Right.
And
Period.
who's to say
And that's the
the
worst
guy
part
working
about
in
it,
the
okay?
store? I mean, we don't even know. The guy working in the store, is he even
If he's
legal?
legal. Right.
That's
If
the point.
he's
Listen,
documented,
listen to
so
my-
maybe he's undocumented. Maybe he doesn't want to get involved. Maybe he doesn't want the police in his thing.
Or maybe he knows that those trinitarios are crazy and they're gonna come back and chop them up too.
Right? Yeah. So
You know,
there's so many. There are just so many scenarios to what went through those.
Through that
Through that
guy's
guy's head. And I don't think that we should be crucifying them for what they did or what they didn't do.
And the
The
crazy
people
Everybody
that should
has
be
to act-
crucified are the criminals that committed the crime.
And the crazy part that we don't realize it because we watch these videos over and over. That was like a 2-minute time period or 3-minute time period.
Yeah,
I
it
think, at
happened
most.
quick. Yeah, it was-
So fast, and that
You don't have time to think.
You don't have time to think. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I saw somebody get shot in front of me. I was like, oh man, that happened in 30 seconds. You know what I did? I went upstairs. Police came. Did you see him? Nope.
You saw somebody get shot in front of you?
Yeah, right in front of us in Williamsburg.
Oh my god.
We see anything? Nope. My
Was
mother's
it-
car got shot up. We didn't see
Listen,
anything.
the store I had in
And we saw
Williamsburg, South 9 in Bedford, there should be a drugstore in that corner. Like every weekend, somebody's getting shot at in that corner. We'd be inside the social club, partying and this and that and the other. We don't know what the hell's going on outside. But every weekend, somebody's getting robbed, killed, shot, in that store.
And listen, at the end of the day, when you're doing those stores, you want to come home to your family the next day. You want to be able to see your kids.
That's why finally I gave it up. I was like 27 years old, 2 doors. I said, what the hell am I doing here? I'm John Wayne coming to work with a 38 and a shotgun every day.
You guys, from your own personal experience, you had an uncle, right, that had that situation.
Right.
That
Mickey.
Oh yes,
I
yes.
mean, that's something that.
Right. So
and
kind
it
of
was the 70s, right?
right to just bring you guys into what we're talking about. One of our uncles used to do stick ups to these bodegas. Full disclosure, he was a drug addict, and whenever he was desperate to he didn't have any money and he needed money for drugs, he would go and rob local bodegas. And so one day he went to this bodega on Bushwick, and I guess this was like he had robbed this bodega before, a few times before, and he always got away. But the last time that he went in there, the guy must have got tired of getting robbed, and at this point he had a gun and he shot and killed my uncle. And so when we're talking about these bodega owners, and I think the point that my dad is making, and what really helped me to see things differently, is that we don't know, the pressures that these bodega owners have every single day,
And what
just
their experiences
right,
have been.
just
Yeah.
going to work every day, opening
Right.
their stores and providing this service to the community. We don't know on a day-to-day basis how many times they're getting robbed, or how many times they're being faced with these life-threatening situations.
Right.
And so for me at least, when I stepped out of my emotions you know, and thought about it, I was able to see things from a different perspective. And in that sense, I appreciate my dad, because a lot of times he counters every single thing that I say. You know, sometimes I think he's just crazy, and we will always, you know, we'll agree to disagree. But there are
we don't agree to disagree. That's the problem.
Yes, I disagree with you perfectly fine.
No.
Yes, I do.
Agree to disagree means that you accept each other's viewpoint. You don't.
I think you're crazy.
That's not acceptance.
Okay? That's not agreeing to disagree.
Well, I just like to agree, and I just think my father's crazy. But I mean, so I think that we have to, you know, put ourselves in their situation. And I want to kind of talk to my mom here for a second, because as the wife
I was in this
of a bodega owner, you know, there were times where she would mind the store. You know, my dad wasn't there, she would be there, and she was the one behind the counter. And one day she was, I don't know, pregnant with my sister.
7 months.
And she was, you know, in the store. So, Ma, why don't you talk a little bit about that story?
Well, yes, I was left alone in the store. Your father had to go to the bank, and this girl that your father knew for many, many years, they grew up together. She came into the store, and she took 2 bottles of 40. I like it was yesterday. Coke 45, and there was a Coke 45, 2 liters. You know.
One in each hand.
Yeah, and then I see her walking out the door, and I tell her, you know, you got to pay me for the beer, and she says, I ain't paying for shit. And I said, excuse me? And she said, I'm not paying. And I said, okay. I picked up
What was it?
I picked up a can of beans, and I threw it at her. Mm-hmm. And then
Did it hit her?
No, it didn't. No. I didn't mean to hit her. I just wanted her, you know, for her to react.
Right.
So then she goes and she has the 2 bottles in her hands, and she just drops them and she breaks them on the floor, and she says, "There it is. I ain't paying for them, and they're."
And now you gotta clean it up.
No, and I'm not paying for it, and now they're on the floor. I can't drink them. You can't charge me.
Right.
No, you can't charge me. And I said, okay. And she says, and now I'm gonna go upstairs, and I'm gonna come back, and you're gonna see what's gonna happen to your little pretty face.
And what happened?
She put down some acid.
Oh my God.
But in that time, my cousin, my husband's cousin, your father's cousin, he came around, and he came in the store, and she had the acid, and then your father
got there
at the same time. Yeah. So, oh my God, say the rest.
No, I didn't do much. I grabbed my gun and I told her, if you cross the middle of the street, I'm about to blow your brains out.
Did she ever come back to the store?
No.
No, she came back
To
another time,
apologize
and I had to grab her by the neck, and I threw her across the pool table in the pool room next door.
No, but she never came into the store
Not
again.
in the store, no, but
She never came into the store again.
We got into it again at another date, and I wound up body slamming her in the pool table.
But if I would have been there by myself, that your father's cousin wasn't there, and your father didn't arrive at that particular time, my face probably would have been disfigured, because she had the acid to throw it in my. She had it. She went upstairs.
She was known for that, you know. Attacking, her enemies with lies.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
she
got
was
a couple of people like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she never got arrested or.
You know what
That was the Wild
happens
Wild
in the
West
hood
back
stays in the hood. If it ain't life or
And
death.
I never, ever stay alone in that store ever again.
I mean, I would imagine not.
And I was pregnant with Diana. I was 7 months pregnant.
I never let you go back. You don't went back.
No, I was so scared.
That's why I'm so
that's a life of
feisty.
bodega. That's a life of bodega owner.
Right.
And you want to hold these people accountable for certain things. You can't. You have to put yourself in their places for a day, and then see what you might have done.
That's a first-hand account.
Right, no, and I get it now. I think that, and I also think though, because of the way this boy died, it's just everything. It's such a tragedy that people
looking for anything to how that could have been saved.
Yes,
but
yes,
you can't.
Yes,
it didn't happen.
Right.
You can't blame the people that did.
I mean, really. I mean, look, because
something.
then to be honest, and I don't even want to. I'm not blaming the mother at all, but what I'm saying is, why are you letting your son?
But she didn't do nothing. He asked her for permission just to
right.
get them.
Exactly. But again, but then you say no.
All
right, but then as a mother, no, you're not going outside. She needs $5. Let her to come upstairs and get the money.
After the fact, honey, come on.
No, Okay,
It's a benign request.
No, that
And he was
I
just
know.
going downstairs.
But what I'm
After
saying
After the
is,
fact, you're gonna think like that. You trust your son.
Yeah.
He has a friend. Needs $5. I'm going right
And
downstairs,
again,
Mom.
going back to the fact that he's a
Okay.
good kid.
Okay, I'm going downstairs,
Right.
It's
Mom.
summertime. It's,
You're not gonna say
they're
no.
off for school.
but it's
They're-
midnight though.
Okay, they're awake.
He went to
No,
do
but
a
I'm,
favor.
but still, you know what I'm saying? Like I think
No, but
maybe
I agree with
I'm
you.
saying
At
if
that
it's
time-
10 o'clock, I might say,
You can't
okay,
blame the mom in this situation.
I'm not blaming her.
Honey,
I'm not blaming
in the
her.
hood, 12 o'clock
what
is
I'm
like
saying,
10 o'clock.
But look, what
That's
I'm
true.
saying is, what I'm saying is that if
Is
we
it
went,
really? Because we never got to stay out.
Not in my hood.
no, but the point I'm saying is that we can put blame on anyone, right? So if we wanna blame the bodegueros because they didn't help, then we can also say, well, then why did
Right.
she let him go downstairs?
Right.
I heard you there with 2 hospital employees outside and walked right by them when the kid
There
was
was
on the ground.
cops right by the hospital,
you-
and didn't do anything.
blame anybody you
right?
want.
And so this is what I'm saying. I think the emotions with this particular case have been so high
because it was so brutal.
because it was so, and not only because it was so brutal, because we see it, because it's captured on video, because
Right.
it's there.
Right. Yeah,
You know, that's what is
It's
really
horrible.
getting to people.
No, and
because
then, you know-
look, this is not the first time that this kind of situation happens.
2
But
days
we
later,
don't
they
see
did the
it,
same
but we
thing
don't
on the-
see it.
Right,
on the
right.
highway.
We don't see it, so it's harder for us to connect emotionally to that.
Right.
But when you see it, it's a different feeling.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
you're trying
totally.
to rationalize it. You're trying to say, "Damn, what if? What if this? What if that?"
And not
You know,
everybody's a good Samaritan.
You know, and in
That's
those
the
times, I remember when we went out. We were going to we were going by McDonald's. We were going down Broadway. You know, it didn't have no bodega or anything. We were going down by Broadway, and there's 2 cars inside the McDonald's parking, and everything is dark, right? And the McDonald's is closed, and it was just those 2 cars. And then they trying to stop us so they were saying that to help them because they needed to
The car
to get the car started.
They wanted to
And I told Danny, you keep on driving because this is not.
Right.
It didn't look right. It didn't
Right.
look right.
So even though your
and
heart wants to
even
do
though
something,
even
your
though
mind-
that
you
it
can't
might
take
have
a chance.
been for
Right.
real, but
Right.
we didn't want to get involved because I
Right.
don't want nothing to happen to my
Right.
husband.
Right. Yeah.
So we just kept on, and I told him, "Don't you stop," because this one was gonna stop.
Right.
He was gonna stop, and I said, "No, we're gonna go."
right? I mean, it's true. I mean, in those moments, it's hard to say what you would have done, especially when you
Yeah,
have
it's
things
hard.
to lose yourself. When
Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah,
you
I
have
have
a
my 2
family,
daughters, I have
you
2
know, at the end
daughters.
of the day, anyone that has a family, all
Gotta
you want to
think it
do
twice.
is get back home to your family that night.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the bottom line, because you're right. If it's to choose between helping someone and making sure that I'm coming back home to my kids, and
You gotta come home.
as much of a community person as I am, you know, I might call, you know, the cops. I'll call from the safety of wherever I'm at.
Yes.
But to put myself directly in the line of
No.
harm's way
You can't.
when I have 2 young
You
girls
can't. You
and
can't.
a husband to come back home to, and family that
When
loves
you
me,
have- right.
you
When
know, like
when you have things to lose, you think twice
Twice.
about
Yeah.
what you're gonna do.
Plus, personality, I would always get involved. I know I would get involved.
The other
But you
thing-
know, you know-
but the other thing
But
too,
that's why too, though, Dad. You have had good karma. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why you're still here, right? You almost lost your life, a few years ago in that car accident, but you did it. I mean, and you were really hurt, injured. You know what I mean? It took you months to get back to normal. But I firmly believe that we create our karma based on how we live our life and how we help people, right? And when you do that, you always get it back.
I also think society has changed from a perspective too. Like back in the days, kids wouldn't do something like an adult be like, "Yo, stop doing that." Like you see kids beating kids up, and an
It's
adult
true.
get in, kids would back up and be like, "Oh, well, that's
Right.
the elder talking
Right.
now."
Right.
These
Right.
kids now
No
smack
respect.
you in your face. They'll try to stab you. They'll try
Yeah.
to do all that
Yeah.
You can-
without
you
even
can-
thinking twice.
you can
get
get
involved.
It's such a different time
It
now.
is. Yeah,
Where back in the
absolutely
day,
right.
where we would be fighting in the street and an adult get in and they'll be like, "Yo, I'm gonna back up, whatever,"
Yeah.
and we'll stop.
You're
and
right.
you know, and now
You're
these
right.
kids want to spit you in your face. They're gonna want to stab you. They'll shoot you in a heartbeat.
And
It's
they
such
have
a
guns,
different
and
time.
that's it. They're
Right,
12,
and they-
13 years old with
No
guns.
respect for life. That's the problem.
They have
Right.
guns.
That's exactly what it is.
There's the morality part of it is gone.
So then I guess the question the question is, what can we as a community do
That's
to,
what needs to be done.
to address these issues that are pervasive, in the community? The fact that these kids are turning to the gangs, right? That they don't have any resources within their communities to keep them busy, to do things. Look, You know, we're very lucky that we live in the communities that we do now. And even when we lived in the hood, you know, as bad as it was, we still had the church.
Yes, and we were very active in the church.
And we were active,
which is
Boys and Girls Club.
When I think about it, and I think of most of our friends that were involved in the church as well, we all turned out pretty good.
You're absolutely right.
And, you know...
And the ones that weren't...
Right.
Are the ones that...
And you saved a lot by them being friends with you.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Because I took all those kids to my bosom.
Yeah.
And I treated them and did things with them, you know, to keep them, you know, in the straight and narrow.
But that's the problem now too, right now, that those politicians want to be jumping all into this, but they ain't gonna give back to the community.
Right, and the thing is,
They're
I
not doing anything
it's too late now,
them, right.
because now you want to talk about this kid. What were you doing before?
Yeah.
They didn't care.
You know, what are you doing?
Now it's bad optics. And that's why they want to come in and be like, oh, we're going to help and do that. And it's true. Kids right now in those communities don't have anywhere to go to. They're stuck inside. They're doing things.
Even when I was growing up, we used to have the same church, and I used to be in the friendship. That's how I started, and that's when I led you guys, because I knew how it used to be there. It was good. So, you know, that's why...
we couldn't cross the street. Thank God the church was around the corner.
I know, you're absolutely
because
right.
if we would have had to cross the street, we probably wouldn't have been able to go.
Nope. And the crazy part, that kid was in a program going in the right direction. Right. But a lot of other kids probably weren't going to be part of it.
But his surroundings...
The fact of the matter is, city funds are always being diverted to other areas, and not to our own neighborhoods.
Right.
That's true.
Okay, they have plenty of money for this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. But programs that help our kids in our neighborhoods, they never seem to have enough of that.
And when they do it, they exploit it in the wrong ways.
And so, you know, the question, or I guess what I'm going to put out into the universe, right? Because I think at this point, everyone is really looking at themselves. Everyone is asking the question, like, what can we do, right? And people want to, I guess they want this really grandiose, you know, answer of what can be done. But the bottom line is, guys, that we each can affect change in our own communities even by one. That's exactly what I'm saying, on a one-on-one basis. So you go into your community, and it might not be, you know, your own kid. You can be raising, you know, a perfect kid, but maybe your kid's friend,
right?
You know, who comes from a broken home or who does not have what they have. You take that kid in, and you show them a different way of life. And if, you know, they're missing their mom or they're missing their dad, then you step into that role for that one person. And I think that if we all start doing that, start thinking about how we can affect one person
at a time,
that's how we start to change our communities one by one. Right. It doesn't take this big, huge, you know, monetary investment. Yes, that would be great, right? But you can build a community center, but if the kids ain't coming, what good is the community center?
Right.
You know, and so I think that's where I'm going to end it, you know, tonight. Just, you know, think about how you, me, we can affect the life of one child and how we can make that better.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I always lived it that way. I always
totally agree.
All right, guys. So until next time, thank you for rocking with me. Go out there, stay focused, and crush those goals.